Hello everyone, this is Games Analysed number 4. This game was submitted by the YouTube user ongyj. It is a 10-minute blitz game he played on the free internet chess server. He was black in this game and his opponent kicked off with e4. And he replied with the French defense e6. And now his opponent played f4. d4 controlling the center and opening up the bishop on c1 was to be preferred. And now he played d5, and after e5 he gained more control of the center with c5. In this opening, white is aiming to play f4 before playing knight to f3. He would like to play knight to f3, c3, d4 and bishop d3 with a pleasant position, aiming to break on the king side with f5 eventually. Black's task is to prevent this. Then came knight to f3 and black played knight to c6. After c3, black played bishop to d7, and after d4, black attacked the d4 pawn again with queen to b6. And now white blundered with knight on Bd2 because this loses the d4 pawn, and better was bishop to e2. Now came c takes d4, winning the d4 pawn. And now white preferred not to recapture but to play knight to b3 because he was going to lose a pawn anyway. And now black replied with d takes c3, and after b takes c3 he played knight to a5, aiming at a weak c4 square. Now white traded off knights, and now the c3 pawn is threatened and white defended with bishop to d2. Now black played queen c7, but he could have done better by playing bishop to a4, attacking the queen. And now with queen b1, then rook b8 protecting b7. And if white decides to play c4, then black should play queen to c5. And black has a comfortable position. In the game, black played queen c7, and white replied with knight to d4. And now black played a6. This doesn't seem necessary. Bishop c5 looks more natural. Now white developed his bishop with bishop to d3. And then came bishop to c5. Now white castled and black developed his knight with knight to e7, aiming at both f5 and c6. And white played king to h1, just getting the king out of the diagonal of the black dark squared bishop. Now black played knight to c6. Instead h5, trying to control g4 and therefore securing f5 as a future outpost for the knight. One deep and probably a bit too optimistic idea might be to trade off both bishops for white's light squared bishop and his knight to enter an endgame with a good knight versus a bad bishop. For example, with bishop b5 to trade off the light squared bishop and maybe first bishop takes d4. So this would have been another plan. But black chose to play knight to c6 instead. Now came knight to f3. And now black played bishop to e7, wisely avoiding castling short, which would lead to the Greek gift sacrifice with bishop takes h7 check. I will make an additional video on this position for my Greek gift sacrifice video series. Okay, so in this position black played bishop to e7, and then came queen to c2, preventing castling because of bishop takes h7 check. And now h6, preparing to castle, and now white plays g4. Positionally a bad move, which is not justified in this position. Black continued naturally with rook to c8, exerting pressure along the c file, and white played queen b1. And now black played rook b8. Why lose time with this move? More accurate was knight a5, aiming at c4. Now white played a3, which I don't really see the point of, and black played knight a5, aiming at the weak c4 square. And now white played f5, which is a good move, gaining more space on the king side. And now black played e takes f5. Opening the e file is way too dangerous. The simple knight c4 looks better to me. After g takes f4, black played correctly knight to c4, and then came bishop to f4, putting the bishop on the same diagonal as the queen and the rook. Now came bishop c6. This is a blunder which allows the crushing f6. The bishop was doing a great job of preventing f6 because after g takes f6, queen e1, black always had bishop e6 blocking the e file and therefore preventing any tactics. Now white should have played f6, instead played rook e1. And now if g takes f6, then comes queen to e1, threatening the deadly e takes f6, securing queen and rook, and the queen can't take because of queen e7 mate. So now if f takes e5, then comes knight takes e5, with the threat of knight takes f7, which would attack the queen. Now knight to d6 is the best defense, blocking the diagonal to the queen, and also defending f7 in a tactical line after knight takes f7. If now white still tries to play knight takes f7, then comes d4 check, king g1, rook g8 check, and now if king f2, then we have checkmate with rook g2, so that's not an option. So white has to play bishop to g3, and since the bishop is now pinned, black can safely take the knight on f7. So knight takes f7 doesn't work after knight d6. Instead, white should play queen to g3, supporting the bishop along the diagonal, and preventing rook g8 check in the aforementioned line, and thus renewing the threat of knight takes f7. And now comes rook to f8 to defend the f7, and after bishop takes h6, black should play d4 check, and after king g1, d takes c3, bishop takes f8, bishop takes f8, rook a to e1, white wins. So this f6 would have been white's best chance of winning, but he missed that and played rook to e1 instead.